announce themselves and identify that they are present, please. We'll start with Brian.
Yes, Brian McDonald, present. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Other members, feel free to just speak up if you don't mind.
Kathy Pitkauskas is present.
Thank you, Kathy.
Blair Wong is present.
Thank you, Blair. Very good. Howard Purcell, I'm current chair of the Statutory Advisory Board. So good afternoon, everyone. A couple of things we just need to get to first. Notification and confirmation this meeting is being held via Zoom under the law signed by Governor Baker on July 16th, 2022, granting authority for such virtual meetings until March 31st, 2023. My understanding is that that has now been updated, that we now have the ability to, over the next couple of years through March 31st, 2025, to continue via Zoom. I think the group will have discussions about the idea of perhaps having a couple of meetings, at least in person. But for now, we do have the flexibility. Looks like Colleen has just joined us. Hi, Colleen.
Everyone.
Great. Good to see you. Thank you. So it looks like we have that flexibility, but I think the group will discuss the idea of whether or not a face-to-face meeting would be appropriate. So that will come. Let's also confirm that we record these SAB meetings, allowing for local recordings, make such recordings available to the public. I want to welcome our public members for attending the meeting. We will have a Q&A opportunity we typically hold until the end of the meeting. So if you'll be patient with us, we'd appreciate that very much. One order of business that we do need to take care of is vote to accept the minutes of the previous SAB meeting on March 7th. May I have a motion by one member of the board to accept those minutes, please?
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. We'll have Brian as the motion maker and Kathy as the second. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate that. It is typically at this point that we have the commissioner's update. I want to mention that I heard at 10:25 today, the commissioner is unable to join us due to illness. We certainly hope that he feels better. John, I put you on the spot. I don't know if you're prepared to make any comments around the typical update we get. If not, we would like to give Chandra an opportunity to give us any updates as well, but we'll start with you, John.
Yeah, so I'll have some updates, but let's go with Chandra. She can focus in on our fiscal update.
Great, Chandra. Typically, thank you for joining us as well. We appreciate it. Typically, it's just the financial status of the commission is always on our minds. I think the elephant in the room here we may as well mention is that I think many of us were shocked by the article in the Boston Globe on Sunday. Particularly members of the Statutory Advisory Board, to be honest. There was much in there we had really no idea about. We were hoping today to have the commissioner so that he could at least make some comments. We would love to hear from him, as in any situation. We haven't heard from the commissioner on this, and we believe it's important that we do. Not putting all that pressure on you. All we're asking of you today, if you don't mind, is to give us an idea of the fiscal soundness of the commission and your opinion on where things are today. We heard good news last time we met with you, and hopefully that news carries on through this month.
Yeah, and I wish that I could have given you guys an update on the news story. I didn't get any advance notice on it, and obviously I wasn't interviewed for the story either. So I don't know much about it. I don't know when more information will become public, but maybe others on the call know a little bit more than I do. But from the financial perspective, I just want everyone to reassure everyone that MCB is in great financial standing. We talked last month about how the governor's budget came out, and we were really impressed with the numbers that the governor had allotted for us right now. Right now, we're waiting for the House budget to come out. Ways and Means is deliberating. They had the budget testimony. John was able to fill in to provide the testimony. Thank you, John. And I don't believe we'll see any surprises. Now, typically in the House and Senate budget, we do see some earmarks materialize from the legislative side. That's where earmarks are proposed. So I'll be happy to keep you posted on that as the budget process continues. One thing I noticed that was under the CFO or commissioner updates was the status of reallotment funds for the agency. I just wanted to let you know that we did propose to use $690,000.
I'm sorry, Chandra. If I could ask everyone to please mute, if you don't mind. We have a big group today, and it's a little difficult. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Chandra.
Yeah, no problem. And if anyone has questions, obviously, jump in or wait until the end, however you prefer that, Howard. But we have about $690,000 that's set aside for reallotment funds. We've got one of the projects that comprises kind of the bulk of that amount. It's about $500,000. And that will be an ad buy for the What's Your Vision campaign that we utilized, I think, last year or the previous fiscal year. Again, there wouldn't be a new material. It would just be buying more ad time to redistribute the content again. Again, that's $500,000. There were 2 other small projects, and right now we are kind of waiting for the commissioner to weigh in on if a different project will would be a priority at this time. So that's sort of in flux now. That's not something that would raise any eyebrows. We have until 9:30 to spend the funds. And so sometimes projects do change based on what the current circumstances are. So again, we'll give you an update on the rest of those projects once we hear more from the commissioner. As far as the status of the survey, I think Nate might have a little more info on that one today, but that's really all I have from the financial side. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Chandra. So for right now, we're going to hold on any questions unless
Absolutely.
members had direct questions for you. I also want to be cautious. I don't think we've ever had this size of a group join us for the SAB. To me, it appears there are many questions, but what I don't think is necessarily going to be fair is to raise all those questions with all of you. Where you feel you can answer them, please stay with us and do your best.
Yep.
Other than that, I would suspect there will be some questions we're not going to be able to answer today. Our hope would be the commissioner will join us sooner than next month, or perhaps next month, to be able to help us answer some of those. But if you can stick around, if there are questions you're comfortable answering and you're in a good position to answer, we would certainly appreciate that.
Will do, Howard. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. John, it's all yours.
Sure. I'll give you some program updates. Everything is moving smoothly here at the agency. We have continued to establish different partnerships, and some or most of you have heard of the NIB entrepreneurship partnership that we have. We have currently 4 candidates that were interested in entering that program. So the process is ongoing to review them, and there's some tests they have to take and some skills they have to demonstrate, and that's going forward, and we'll see how that moves forward. Our pre-employment transition conference, Visions of Collaboration, we call it, was held last week, and we had a great attendance. Many teachers of the visually impaired, many orientation and mobility instructors from around the state attended. This was our first large in-person conference, and the attendees were very, very happy to be back in person again. Lots of resources were exchanged. We had some vendors come and had tables there, and were able to hand out some information, and the usual networking occurred as we all moved towards trying to gather as much information so that they can continue to work with their transition youth as they move on and acquire skills to move on in their lives and gain a lot of their independence and sort of work-based skills that they'll need as life moves on. So Next Generation, the program that we're collaborating with MRC on, a $17 million grant that MRC received, and we are part of that grant. We've been making referrals. Our consumers are receiving additional services other than the vocational services that they are eligible for. So this is great. We are having consumers who need these additional services to move them forward in their quest for employment. So that's moving well, and staffing has achieved a level where services are being delivered now, and MRC is really doing well. We've had a good number of referrals from Western Mass, which is great to see. New opportunities for our Western Mass consumers and some here on the South Shore. So we're definitely moving forward with that. Our internship program continues to move forward. Planning is going on. We anticipate having our soft skills training for all of the potential interns in May, and then our traditional opening ceremony in June, which will be virtual. And then we are hoping to do an in-person closing ceremony in August. Again, we'll wait to see how things are working out, but right now it looks positive. We have space on hold for that, so we're hoping to again bring the students all back together and allow them to network and meet each other in person. And although Zoom has worked out well, it's still important to continue to network and do what we do and allow them to connect and share resources and experiences. Our reverse job fair continues. The planning is going on, and we are anticipating again holding an employer education seminar in September for attendees of the job fair, employer attendees. And then we will have our consumers present themselves to the employers. The reverse job fair is a method that we've been using now for a couple of years, and it's turning out to work out very well. This way we have the consumer presenting themselves to a variety of companies, and if the companies are interested and may have an opportunity for that individual, then they are contacted. So it is a different model, but a model that we have been trying out, a model we've seen some other agencies use and with some success. So we're holding on to that model and continuing to move forward. Our employer partners are very happy with that model and seem to believe it's working out well. So we'll continue to move forward. Also, the earmarks, for those who are taking advantage of those earmark funding with our partner providers are being utilized. Referrals are still being made. Services are still being offered. And we are hearing lots of good things from our consumers that are attending the program and appear to be very happy at the services that they are receiving. So that's pretty much it on a lot of the highlighted services that we have going on. And feel free to we can answer questions later. And I'll turn it back to you, Howard. Maybe we can go to Nate next and talk about the registration dashboards.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. And this is a reminder, because I was asked, Chandra is the CFO of the Mass Commission for the Blind. And John, your exact title is Assistant?
I'm Deputy Commissioner.
Deputy Commissioner. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. One other thing, John, since you brought it up, and if you care not to comment on it now, I think we may understand that, but wondering if you could comment on the idea of certifications for the blind being stopped, that we're not certifying any more of those, and mobility training and supplies that our wait time is very significant at this point. Are you in a position to comment on either one of those issues?
Well, our Nate will address the registration issues more. We are currently we're processing registrations within 1 to 3 days. Orientation and mobility services are being distributed. We have more staff, more mobility staff working for the agency now than we've had in a number of years. And we continue to use our partner at the Carroll Center to supplement with additional mobility services for those who need it. So obviously, depending on the area and depending, there may be sometimes, since we have one instructor per region that we have instructors in, and we have an instructor that left recently. So we have one of the regions that are currently, we're waiting to post or bring an instructor in, but we have our partner at Carroll Center ready to take those referrals. So as far as time goes, it does take a couple of weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks to get a referral done. It depends. We have one instructor in Western Mass, and depending on the level of registrations and the level of consumers looking for orientation and mobility, that might take a little longer than, let's say, if you lived on the South Shore, or but it is a high volume department. This is why we have a Carroll Center partnering with us to provide additional services in regions that we don't have instructors in, and to fill in as needed. So we're doing the best we can to get that, keep that rolling, and to get those services out to consumers as fast as possible.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate that. And do stick around. I'm sure, have some additional questions for you, but I appreciate you doing your best to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we will now move over to Jim. Jim, thank you again for joining us. Just as a reminder to everyone, we have all new members of the Statutory Advisory Board, and as a result, we've been trying to do our best to understand the agency as best we can, and we really appreciate you being here with us. This is kind of part 3 for us. And Jim, I know that you serve as director of the Randolph-Sheppard Vending Program, but I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from your experiences and your insights. So please, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. And I'd like to state that the Randolph-Sheppard program started in 1936 when President Franklin Roosevelt signed it into law. It was modeled on a program that was being run in Canada. And it started to provide individuals with loss of vision with a path forward on entrepreneurship. It started as very small cigarette and newspaper stands tucked under stairs in federal buildings only. Then as it grew, we had major amendments in 1954 and 1965 and 1974, which greatly expanded the program into more food, vending, cafeteria services, and broad spectrum across the board on delivering different services to the public. Initially, it was only in federal buildings, but during that time, also every state in the union except the state of Wyoming, which I don't know why, adopted what we refer to as mini Randolph-Sheppard locations. So it's a great public-private partnership where we provide the equipment, and the blind manager is actually running his or her own business, hiring, firing, determining what they're doing. So it's been a very, very wonderful program over the years. I've been in this about 17 years now. When I first came in, there were about 3,200 blind vendors operating throughout the country. Today, we're reporting around 1,200. So there's been a significant decline, which is certainly bad for the Randolph-Sheppard program, but I think there is a silver lining that I think in part it speaks to that there are many more opportunities to individuals who are visually impaired in the world of work today. So again, I don't like the trend for Randolph-Sheppard, but I think it speaks to more employment opportunities for individuals with vision loss. In the Commonwealth, last year, our blind managers had sales of $1.7 million, which is down quite a bit compared to pre-COVID times. Currently, we have 16 sites that are open. We'll have our 17th open tomorrow. We're having a grand opening at the O'Neill building. COVID has been devastating to the operation of these facilities, not just here, but across the whole country. So we're still in that mode of trying to figure out how to grow and reestablish the businesses with our blind entrepreneurs. The real challenge, I think, is the lack of return to work on both the federal and state level. We're just not seeing people coming into the buildings, which is how all of our blind vendors obviously sell their food and beverages to individuals. So that has become an incredible challenge to us. Even pre-COVID, the workforce was turning into a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday work week. So it's been challenging for our vendors to see how they can maximize their profits to their customers while they're there. To that end, as we're moving forward, we've embraced some new technology to try to increase sales. We're going to micro markets, which allow employees to self-check out their product, and it allows our blind entrepreneurs to have their facilities open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's increasing their sales. We just recently opened our first one at the State House. So if any of you are there, please come visit us on the 4th floor and you'll get a flavor of what it's done. And the blind vendor there has been very happy with what the sales have driven for him. So that will be upgrading all of our facilities that want it to this 24-hour business model so they can increase sales. We're also, there's some new technologies, cafe coolers, which instead of just a traditional vending machine where you could get a Snickers bar or a can of soda, we can put in salads, sandwiches, so forth. And again, 24-hour a day, 7 day a week services with a much larger range of products for folks. So I think the big challenges we have now are the return to work. So that's what we're facing, but we're cautiously optimistic with some of this new technology. Are there questions that I could answer?
Thank you, Jim. No, I appreciate the overview there and giving us some historic information too. I think it's helpful. Tell us about your organization itself. Is it just you? You have people who work with you in this effort?
There are 2 of us running the Randolph Shepherd program currently throughout the Commonwealth. So we travel from one end of the state to the other. The majority of our locations currently are in Greater Boston. So I think that just evolved where there were a lot of office buildings, but we're looking to expand. We were out in Springfield last 2 weeks ago where we have a large operation at a federal postal facility, and we'll be growing that business also.
Thank you, Jim. One of our board members has a question for you, Kathy.
Hi, Jim. Just one question about the long-term goal, I guess, of the program. Is it around training, or is it just long-term employment for these business managers? I'm just wondering if it's like a rotational type of model where people gain skills and experience and move on to other businesses, or is it, set up so that that the managers are long-term owners of the business?
Great question. Historically, if the fit works to begin with, very, very few people leave the Randolph Shepherd program. I know of managers that have been working 50, 55 years. If it's a good fit, they love what they do. Training is important. We're always looking to evolve and make it better. We partnered with the Hadley School for the Blind. It's now the Lighthouse program in Chicago that has a wonderful Randolph Shepherd online training that individuals can take at a self-paced basis. It's about 15 modules, and they move from one module to a next, and it provides very precise, good training. And we'll also send people wherever they would need for training if so desired.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Jim, you mentioned that the numbers were down a little bit from pre-COVID numbers. You mentioned, I think, 1.7 million. Can you give us any idea, ballpark, what they were pre-COVID?
I don't have that right in front of me. I could certainly pull those. We report to the feds annually, and those are all online.
Okay, so we can access that if we need. Okay, great. Thank you. Before we go any further, I just want to make sure any of the other board members had any questions for Jim. Doesn't look like you do. Jim, thank you. If you can stick around with us, that'd be great. There may be some other questions coming from our consumers. So
absolutely. Thank you.
No, thank you. We appreciate you joining us. We did have some other agenda items to cover, but I get the sense that it might be good at this point to open up. We have over 50 people joining us today. I suspect many of you have questions. Again, as mentioned earlier, we are going to do our best to answer those questions. We may not be able to, but at this point, and there's lots of different ways you can ask a question. Given the numbers we have, if I could ask you either to, if you're comfortable, to use the raise the hand, that's the best way. We can see you right away and identify you. If a second option could be to turn on your camera. If you're able to do that, we can see your face and we'll know you have a question. And finally, if none of those are comfortable for you, just speak up, say hello. It will light up your box, and I will do my best to make sure I can identify those who may have a question. So at this point, I'm going to use my privilege to say we'll pause our agenda here and open up to questions from the consumers. Before you begin, let me just say this group is 100% focused on serving the community, and we have many questions ourselves. But at this point, we're here at your service. We would love to try to do our best to let you know our position and answer questions that we can for you. So with that, I will pause and ask if there are any questions. I'll give you just another moment if you're sorting through raising your hand or turning on your camera or just saying hello to us so we know you're there. Okay, oh, good. There we go. It looks like, is it Nona?
Yes, it is. I was wondering if I could get some information based on something that the article talked about. And I was wondering, I don't know if the board members would know, or certainly the deputy commissioner, but I'd like to know a little bit more about the gift and bequest program.
Thank you, Nona. So, John, I don't know if you're in a position to answer that, or Chandra, but we'll give you a chance.
Chandra, do you want to take that?
Chandra, are you with us? There she is. Okay.
I sure can. John, my name is Chandra. You've known this. You've worked with me for over a decade. The gift and bequest is a trust account. It's actually not called the gift and bequest account. It's called the Special Education Purposes Trust Fund, and it's set aside to provide funding in emergency situations only. And MCB has an internal policy that dictates what is an emergency and what the monies can be used for.
Thank you, Chandra. I will get that right next time too. Sorry about that. I'm probably the reason for it because I keep saying it that way. My apologies.
Oh, no problem.
Nona, thank you for the question. And if there's more details you need, it sounds like Chandra would be the right one to go to. But thank you, and thank you for joining us. We'll turn it to Justin. Hi, Justin.
Hello. Yeah, I'd like to know, what is that internal policy? Is that available to us anywhere?
It's an MCB internal policy for our procedurals. I don't know that it's an outward facing document that shows the criteria on that, but I can definitely speak to the rest of the team and see if we have anything that's outward facing.
Well, maybe a better question then. What are examples of what are examples in the past where that funding has been used?
Yeah. So they're typically for consumers that have experienced an emergency in life. And now, to be clear, I do not determine what that emergency is, or I don't say yes or no. I am the one who writes checks if it meets that criteria. So I am not the one with the discerning eye on this, but it's typically for a situation where there are no other means available, meaning there are no other MCB appropriations that can be used to fit this need. There are no other nonprofits that can be used to fit the need or the gap or the hole that people are looking for.
Yeah, sorry. So like what kind of needs would those be typically? Like I know it's an emergency, but like what do you know of example? I mean, obviously no names or, confidentiality. Right. Obviously that's important, but what are general emergencies that happen that require funding like that to be used? Is it a payment deadline hasn't been met? Is it what kind of emergencies?
Yeah. Let's see. And again, I'm just going to redact this to make sure I don't use any, true life examples, but a lot of times what we see is people who aren't able, they need to move because of a catastrophic incident, perhaps a fire, and they're not able to afford a first and last month's rent at a new place. And so they may request some assistance in that. So again, this has to be sort of the last means of recourse. So if they have money in a savings account, obviously you need to use that first. If it's somebody younger, if you need to ask, you'll have to ask your, see if there's any other avenues where funding is available for situations like this. And if not, MCB is able to fit a need. I've seen it also used for, bed bug remediation, where the person didn't have any savings or the income to be able to get that remediation so that they can live comfortably in their own home.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Justin. Castrell is next. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Hi there.
Hi, I also have a question for Chandra. Do you have any information about outcomes from the What's Your Vision campaign? Like numbers, how many people that's reached that have responded to it?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm, as the CFO, I guess, maybe above or below my pay grade. I don't know which one, but that's just not under my purview. But we can try to get you in touch with the right people. I think, Sharon, maybe I could have you connect with Mike Saccone.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Looks like Mike is on the line. Mike,
Oh,
do you care
perfect.
to comment on that if you would? If you can't, that's fine. But if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Yeah, in terms of how many people saw it last time and where it aired and the impressions, there is a report that's posted online and I can drop it in the chat right now.
That would be fabulous. Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us today. All right, let's see. Sharon, I think, had a question. Sharon?
More with the gift and bequest. Having served at MCB, I used it many times for emergencies and it was very helpful. But what I've been hearing now is that there's an education component tied to it, that it's being used for training. And I don't believe that's originally what it was for. Can you comment on that, please?
That I think you just might be hearing that wrong. There's no education piece that it's been used for. So it's actually in statute, and Lauren can speak to this. It's called the Special Education Purposes Trust Fund. That's how it's been established. But MCB has an internal policy that dictates how it can be spent in line with the gift and bequest. But again, it's not used for education. That's what the VR grant is used for.
Thank you, Sandra. By the way, just a reminder for those who can access it, Mike has put on the What's Your Vision 2021 campaign report in the chat. If you need it in through another vehicle, please let us know, but hopefully you can access it there. Thank you, Mike. Okay, Nona, I think, has another comment, or her hand's still up. I'm not sure.
No, I do have another comment. It's just a follow-up to
Yes.
Sandra. So if I'm just curious, who ultimately makes the determination? Is there a committee that ultimately makes the final decision on how the money is bestowed on an individual?
How the money is bestowed?
Well, I mean, how it's granted to for a person or an individual.
Do you mean if it is granted? I hate to put words in your mouth. Yes.
Yes,
There you
if
go.
it is granted, yeah. Who makes that determination?
So the policy dictates that first the regional director makes sure that it meets the criteria of the policy itself. And then I don't know if it goes to the deputy commissioner next, but then I know it goes to the commissioner to make
No,
sure again it meets the criteria of the policy
it goes directly to the commissioner.
from the regional. Yeah, the regional
From the
director
regional
makes sure
director.
it meets the policy or the directives under it, and then it goes to the commissioner for his or her signature, and then it goes to me because this is one of those things that we actually use an old-fashioned checkbook to issue the payments for, and that's my involvement with it.
Right. Could just another quick follow-up. Just in a period of time, I mean, how can you estimate like how often the funds have been used in, like, say, the period of a year?
You know what? I'm so sorry. I don't have that number with me. I had a baby earlier this year, so I was out for 4.5 months. So I don't have a good handle on that with me right now. Again, it's all issued with a checkbook itself, so we can get that sort of details. That's no problem. But I can tell you that we do get deposits for this account when people pass away, or that's typically how we receive donations. People are providing checks in memory of a loved one who has passed away. So the average check that we get in is about $10. And then the average check that we write out is somewhere around $3,000. Again, most of it is a lot of times to, avoid instances of potential homelessness.
Right.
I'll let a little more about it from the finance side, I guess.
Right.
Thank you, Sandra. Perhaps for our next meeting, we could get an idea. Is it a handful or is it a dozen? I mean, just somewhere in the neighborhood of kind of what we're talking about here. So we could answer that question for next time. But thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no problem.
Yeah, that's great. Right. I'm going to allow again the opportunity for any additional questions.
There is a question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat. It says percentage of denials to those granted is what is being asked. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I don't know if you don't know the numbers, Chandra, I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer that one either, but can anyone answer what percentage of these are typically denied?
I wouldn't see them, and neither would John, I guess. If they were denied, it wouldn't get to me. So I'm sorry, we don't have that information for you today.
Okay. And do we have any idea on how much is in the fund currently? Is that public information? And do you know how much is in there?
I don't have that in front of me, but if you look on the ANF's website, it's typically posted at how much is in a trust account. So we can bring that and circle back to the group too.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And thank you all for the questions. Looks like Justin may have another question. Justin, please.
Yeah, I have two since we're I'm not running over people, so it's not too many questions. So my first question is what happened with the comic exactly? Why was this comic made? Who was consulted? Yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective on, or any of your guys' perspective on the comic.
Justin, let me jump in here. If any of my colleagues at the commission care to answer this is fine. I think it is probably fair to have the commissioner answer that question, and we'll hope that we can get the commissioner to join us soon or next month at the latest. We hope he feels better, certainly. If my colleagues at the commission are in a position to try to answer that, that's fine. But to me, it seems that's probably more of a direct question we would want to hear from the commissioner. With that, I will pause for a second and just to see if any of my colleagues are interested in trying to answer that one. So Justin, we will hold your question. We have the same question. We have multiple questions as a board that we've aggregated. We will make sure that is one of them, and we will try our best to get you the answer. But I think the commission deserves an opportunity to respond to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Follow up?
Hello, Bruce. How are you? Please, it's all yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman. Two quick questions. One is, I think the Globe article indicated that Chandra had resigned, and I wish that she would speak to that, please. Like, is there a date set? And first of all, let me also say I wish her well, because I know her very personally. And the second question is, on that $500,000 advertising campaign, is it the commissioner's sole purview to make the decision about spending the money on that?
It was $200,000.
I think, again, I'll remind everyone to please mute. Chandra, that one first question was directed towards you. Do you want to answer that at this point?
I didn't know the Globe article mentioned my name at all, so sorry to
I actually
to have
didn't
a
see
scoop
that.
for you, Bruce.
No, I didn't see it.
But for the $500,000 for the What's Your Vision campaign, I guess I'm not sure who decided that was going to be the dollar amount. Again, I was just out for 4.5 months. I'm sorry, so I'm not sure who made the final determination on that. I know that that number could change though, based on, again, the commissioner or the executive commission, the executive staff's prerogatives. Like, say if there was, something that came up that was, deemed more important or more timely at this time, right? There hasn't been an RFR for the 500,000 done yet, so it's still subject to change.
So Chandra, but in a typical situation, that would be the commissioner's privy to make that decision. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think that directly does answer the question. I did not see anything in the article that indicated you were resigning either.
If I'm wrong about that, I really apologize. I thought I had seen that at the end of the article, but I might be wrong.
Okay, we will move on from there then. There is a question in the chat. Let me try this. Is this fund made available to legislators or Health and Human Services? Does it appear as a line item in budget, and under what category? Chandra, could you try that one?
Yeah, I'm just going to look at the question so I don't miss anything.
Yes, please.
Is the fund made available to legislators or Health and Human Services? No, if an agency has a trust account, then other agencies or entities don't tap into that, right? It exists under the Commission for the Blind. And again, we have a policy that outlines how the money is spent. And it appears as a line item under MCB. And sometimes that's shown in the budget under trust accounts. So you could look in that area too. I'm happy to provide the link to you as soon as I can find it and get to it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It was not in the order. Okay, so we're good here. I think those are all the questions I see in the chat. If I missed something, please someone help me, but those are the questions I currently see. I still see Justin's hand raised. Justin, did you have another question or just hadn't lowered your hand?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize, please. Go ahead.
So, in the article and then just personally noting within the community, there seems to be a lot of issues with onboarding people and a lot of struggles with that process taking a while. Two aspects of that I guess I'm wondering about. The first aspect is that for some reason, when I was onboarded last year, everything had to be mailed. There wasn't you couldn't do anything digitally. There wasn't an email option even. You couldn't scan. Maybe you could fax, but everything had to be mailed or faxed. And I'm wondering why that is. I know in Georgia with VR, we don't do that. I was able to send everything with email as long as it was, scanned document and signed and all that. And then the other aspect I'm wondering about too is what are plans to make it easier to onboard people? What is it that is causing such delays in getting new clients?
So John, are you in a position to try to answer any of those questions that Justin has?
So, Justin, when you mean on board, are you talking about a consumer registering to receive services over the agency?
Yes, that initial process to become an MCB client. Yeah.
All right, because onboarding is also used here in the HR process with the state. So I wanted to make sure we were answering the right thing. Nate is on the call with us. Nate, do you want to take his question?
Nate, are you still there with us?
I am here.
All right, terrific. Do you need a review on that question or did you hear the question?
No, I heard the question.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, typically, Justin, so to be registered with Massachusetts Commission for the Blind, you need to be referred to us by an ophthalmologist or optometrist. It can be submitted electronically. We do have an electronic portal, and actually about over 90% of our submissions are electronic. They're not by paper or fax. Right now, we're processing, at least over the last several months, probably closer to a year at this point, we've been processing registrations in 1 to 3 business days, as John mentioned earlier. We're processing COB requests and IDs within 3 to 5 business days. And that really hasn't changed over the last year or so. We've been pretty consistent with that number. We've had a few instances with absences or those type of things where it's gone up a little bit, but no more than a few days. So we're not talking weeks or months by any chance with registrations over the last year. So that's my experience with it so far. Since I've been in the registration department, I took over as the policy and compliance director last January. And like I said, since spring of last year until now, it's been typical that registrations are moving 1 to 3 business days. I just checked this morning before this meeting, as I do every morning, and we had 0 registrations in process because we haven't received any yet today.
So,
thank you, Nate. Justin, did you have a follow-up?
So to kind of get what I understand, not to. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. For me, I had an iReport, but or fax because it was old. So that was what I was referring to, and that was the other thing too, is that I know that in Georgia we are able to submit the Social Security letter, which states legal blindness as proof of blindness to receive services. That's something we're able to do. It doesn't have to be from an eye doctor. And when I asked if I could submit that document, first of all, I couldn't do that digitally, of course, but then that you don't accept that document because Social Security are not eye doctors, and so they would not know if I was really blind or not. Those were the words that she used. So I'm wondering, why is it that it is required to be an eye report, and why is that I have to mail or fax that in?
Justin, I think we heard the majority of your question. I'm hoping Nate can address it. I think it has a lot to do with how we're able to submit, how flexible we are, what are the different ways in which we allow people to submit. Nate, I hope you were able to catch most of that.
Yeah, it sounds like there might be an additional way that Justin's talking about of declaration of legal blindness, but what we do is we follow the law that's the statute. And Lauren, I don't know if you want to point directly to that or not. I know Lauren's on the call, but it's it just must be something outside of our.
So Justin, a little more clarification. So Nate just mentioned the law. So here in Massachusetts, we have a law that requires doctors to register anyone who's legally blind. So the agency many years ago established a register, and the doctors are registering you with the agency as legally blind. And they provide us the eye report, and that saves you the trouble of going to get the eye report and bringing it to us. So the register is separate from VR. It's not part of VR. So if you go to a VR agency in another state who doesn't have that, they can choose to take the eye report, or maybe in that state, because you're presumed eligible when you receive SSI or SSDI, that letter may be acceptable to them. But we are trying to comply with the state law. And so therefore, we have folks have their doctors submit the reports to us now electronically. They used to be mailed or faxed before, but more and more of the doctors are submitting electronically, and others are still faxing, and still a few who have been doing this for a long time will mail, but that number is dwindling as time goes on. So it's just a state by state situation, but there are a couple of 2-3 different states around the country that have a registry that's called, and so that's how you enter the agency. So either way, you'd have to provide an eye report or that letter, but in this case, because we're complying with the state law, and we have an account of how many people who are legally blind here in the Commonwealth, where other states, if you ask them how many people are blind in your state, they can tell you how many people are utilizing VR services, but they can't tell you how many people that are legally blind. So therefore, with the registry, we have the different statistics on, and because we get the eye reports, we know which eye diseases are most common and causing vision loss. So there's a lot of information that we get that, but this law has been around for a real long time, and it's how we've done it here. It is in most of the time done very orderly and very quickly. Now that we have electronic submissions, it's speeding up the process much faster. And Nate took over the program over a year ago. About a year ago, and has been he gave you all the statistics of how long it takes to register a consumer.
Sure. So 7-second follow-up. What are ways that if I have an eye report from another state, right? Let's say it's from a Georgia eye doctor, and I'm signing up for MCB. What are ways that I can get the Georgia eye report to MCB without having the doctor send it directly?
Nate, you want to get that? Or?
Yeah, we would encourage you to see a doctor in Massachusetts when you move to Massachusetts and have them submit it that way. But if it's something that's just been diagnosed, we can take that eye report and take a look at it. It could be submitted to us in a number of different ways. We would take it via email or fax, mail, however.
Yeah, we can manually enter you into our system, Justin. If you provided us with a report from a doctor, let's say if someone's totally blind and they moved here from Hawaii. So if they've been totally blind since birth and their report indicates that they're totally blind, we're not going to dispute that. Well, so we'll take that eye report and we could enter it into our system. But so therefore, that doesn't change. So if someone is legally blind and they have some usable vision, or someone is low vision, then we would want a more current report to be provided to us. And the best suggestion would be, since you're here, is that you try to get a doctor here in Massachusetts, or so that to give us a report that shows that you are, what your current vision is. So we can have, we use that data to help make referrals. Are you going to be a large print user? Are you going to be using audio? Are you going to be using Braille? And the different programs that we get you into, some of the programs like that information, and we're obligated to provide that to them so that they can tailor the programs to fit your needs the best. So, but there is a way that we can manually enter an out-of-state eye report into our system and have you receive the same VR services, because it is a national program funded with federal dollars.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Looks like we have 4 more questions, so I want to make sure we get to those. We'll start with Mika. Hello, Mika. We can't hear you. If you are speaking, Mika, are you there? All right, I will move on and come back to you. Sorry about that. We're just not able to hear you. Sharon, looks like you had a question.
One of the things I was concerned about in the article was the large caseloads. And particularly I hear about it with rehab teaching because the caseloads are so large that the rehab teacher can't consistently work with somebody, especially that's new, with teaching them cooking or working with technology or whatever. So I'm wondering how that's going to be addressed.
Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. Is there anybody from the committee who is in a good position to answer that? I think some of us have the same question. The comment that was made was that there's a cap of 70 clients and most people are doing 120 plus. At least that's what we've read. Is there anybody on today who would be able to comment on that? So I apologize, Mika. It looks like we don't have anybody on who can answer that question. That is a question that board members had as well. We intend to get that question answered, but unfortunately we won't be able to answer that question today. But thank you for reinforcing one that we already had in our mind. Okay, let's see. Debbie, please.
Hi, I just wanted to know, you mentioned there's a registry that a state registry that registers how many blind people there are. I was wondering, in Massachusetts, I was wondering, of all those people registered, how many actually then sign up and become registered with MCB, if there's a big difference between those two numbers.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that. Nate, are you the best one for that one?
Yeah, there's people, they're still registered with us, Debbie, if we get the information, but some of them do decline services. They might not want services for whatever reason. A lot of times when they do decline services, they do reach back out for services at a later time. We find that to often happen. But there are people for many different reasons may decline services up front. And I shouldn't say many. There are people that do, but I would say the percentage overall is low.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. Once again, if you're not comfortable with the hand raise, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from you. We do have a couple minutes left here. Are there any other questions that we can try to do our best to answer? And I do appreciate you all joining us today. These are great questions, and we want to make sure that we can do our best to answer them.
This is Mika. Are you able to hear me now?
Now we can hear you, Mika. Thank you. Yeah, apologize for that. Please go ahead.
No, it was a tweak I had to make on my end, but good morning, everybody. I had kind of a follow-up question moving further down in the process with Justin with regard to onboarding. So once you're onboarded and you apply for VR services, there's typically 2 documents that you have to sign. And one of them is a plan. And I believe that one is all electronic. And there's a beautiful process where you can just click on a link and sign it fully online. And then there's another document, I believe it's the application for services. And that one sort of requires a more manual signature, where when I did it, I had to use a visual interpreter, IRA, in order to sign that form. But it seems like there would be a simple fix if that form could be put into the system that the other form used, or if a commercial product like DocuSign were used, so it would just kind of make the signing of the document more accessible.
Is there anyone who can answer that for Micah, sorry.
So the application, the system that we use is a federal, it's a nationally used system for case management. And many states and RSA does not require the application to be signed. So when the system was developed, because the Rehab Service Administration does not require that, it was not put into the system. So MCB had been using a paper system many years ago, and clients used to have to sign the application. And so it was carried over into the system. So we will look into that and look at using DocuSign or some service to have it signed, or look at that aspect of, do we need the client to sign the application? So because the plan for employment is a mandated plan by and signature is mandated by the Rehab Service Administration, that isn't built into our system, and that's why you find it easier to sign. So we'll take a look at that application signature and review that as we're moving forward.
Thank you.
And thank you for the question. These are ways we continue to improve by getting your good questions and ideas and thoughts. And John and the team are open to that very much. So we appreciate it. I appreciate you all joining us today. We have time if there is one more question from anyone. I'm just going to give you one more opportunity. I do appreciate you all joining. I know you're interested in assuring, just like we are, the commission continues to serve the Commonwealth in the best possible way it can. Just want to make sure. It looks like Nona will have the last question of the day. Thanks, Nona.
Sure. I just wanted to make it's really a question and a comment. It's the question is really directed towards all of you, the board members. I'm just wondering, in terms of your connection with the consumer community, really, do you have direct access with and discussions and talks, or know people within the consumers, so that you could get kind of the feel or pulse of what's happening within the agency? Because those of us who are consumers, who speak with each other, were really not shocked by the report that was put out by the Boston Globe. So I just think that I just was wondering what your connections were with the community.
Yeah, and I'll let my colleagues, thank you for the question. I'll let my colleagues answer from their perspective if they would like. But what I can tell you is we all come from the community that cares for this population. That's number one, at least most of us do. I think it's all of us, actually. We are an advisory board. We don't have any fiscal responsibilities to the agency. So it is our hope to assist, to provide ideas and thoughts. As you mentioned, at least for me, and I think for my other colleagues, they can certainly chime in. There was quite a few surprises in that. We're all pretty new to this group and still learning, and that's part of this process. Is one of the reasons we invited, we've invited at each of these meetings different people from the agency to try to help us understand it better. We meet monthly. This is an open meeting, and we hope we've never had the kind of turnout we've had today, but our hope is to continue to hear from the consumers of our products and the people of the Commonwealth to assure they're comfortable what's going on. I can tell you in probably my 10th or 11th meeting here, I've heard minimal things in the public forum, but I can tell you there are people who reach out privately to offer their suggestions and thoughts, and these have created questions for all of us as we have continued. But as you know, as you should know, our role is advisory. We do our best to try to provide ideas and thoughts and engage as best we can. That said, we have many questions that are outstanding, and we look forward to the opportunity to have those questions answered. But our goal is to try to stay as close as we can, but we're all a little bit new to this and continuing to learn every day. I don't know if my colleagues would like to add any of their thoughts, Brian or Blair or Kathy, Colleen.
Well, this is Brian McDonald, and I am new to this board. I've only been in a couple of these, not even last year. And I wasn't totally surprised with it. I was surprised at the timing of it. I didn't know it was coming out this weekend, but at all. But I wasn't totally surprised. I've worked with the commission for many, many years from our own organization, and we have where I'm at National Borough Press. For those that don't know, we certainly have a lot of consumers from Massachusetts as well as across the country. So, you know, sometimes we might hear a little bit feedback here and there, but I was a little surprised, and I also have a lot of questions now that I'd like to pursue further, just to understand things better and how we can make it better for the commission and for consumers.
Thank you, Brian. I don't know if Blair or Kathy or Colleen wanted to make any additional comments.
This is Kathy. I will comment that I've been through my daughter, who's now a full-grown adult. She's legally blind, so I've had a decades long affiliation and relationship with MCB as she received services from MCB, as a child and as an adult. And also through my work, though today I don't represent, UMass, which is where I work, but we have also had a long-term affiliation with MCB and the opportunity to engage fairly regularly. And that, in my career has been, decades long as well, where I've had engagement with MCB over the years with different leadership, etc. Today, where I have the floor, I just want to thank Chandra and John and Nate and Mike for the information that you provided today. I think that the more data that is available to us, the better. I felt that, I was surprised by the article, and I did feel like my questions coming in was data. Can we see the data? Like what are the wait times? All of those things that were raised, but there didn't seem to be any data. So I'm glad to start hearing. I'm very grateful for the questions that have come in through the attendees today, and hearing the responses has been quite reassuring. And I think it's a great start to a good conversation that I hope will continue going forward into the future. And I think it's really great to have this discussion between the advisory board members, the MCB staff, and the community who's being served. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. Colleen, did you want to say a word before we say goodbye?
I would. Thank you very much. My connection has been through the employment side. I've worked with MCB for quite some time on helping facilitate employment for either the summer interns or for other job seekers, and has always been a very strong relationship. Very impressed with the organization. I was completely taken by surprise by the article, because that has not been the experience that I have had with the organization. And so I have a lot of curiosity, a lot of questions, a lot that I would like to find out. Like Kathy said, that the data will be very helpful to, kind of balance what we saw, and be able to help us figure out, what we can advise, as Howard said so beautifully, our role is as advisory. And so what can we do with this board to be able to help redirect if we can?
Thank you very much, Colleen. Blair, you get the last word if you'd like, my friend.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm new to the board since January, and I consider it an honor and a privilege to serve on this board, because I've been a client of MCB for quite a long time and been wonderfully cared for by places like the Carroll Center. And I've had a lot of connections because I myself am a eye health professional. And so I participate in a lot of advocacy for the visually impaired. And there were a couple things that I had an inkling of that were in the article. And then there were some things in there that I really had no idea about. And I'm just really glad to be on the board at this time to kind of, do my part to ask the right questions. When I'm out and about in advocacy events, and you happen to see me there, feel free to ask me a question if I can ask a question for you at the meeting, if you're not able to be here by yourself. But obviously the way that we conduct our meetings, it's great that the public has the opportunity to ask the question themselves, and you're always welcome to. But as an advocate for the visually impaired, feel free to reach out and contact me if I can be a voice for you.
Thank you very much, Blair. Appreciate it. I think you can all see what a great group we have who is really committed to the citizens of the Commonwealth and making sure that we serve them as best that we can. With that, I want to add to what Kathy said. We want to thank very much members of MCB who were able to join us today and field the questions. Not an easy thing to do. And we appreciate you being here and doing your best to do that. So just wanted to add that. In terms of a new business, I just want to make sure it is in the minutes that the Statutory Advisory Board would like and has additional questions for the commissioner and would like an opportunity to be able to raise those questions with the commissioner. So I'd like that to be noted under new business. I thank the public for your questions and for joining us. I would like to ask if Brian would mind to make a motion to adjourn. Brian?
Yes, I'd make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Colleen, would you second that if you don't mind?
That's my pleasure. Second.
We are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next month.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
all.
Thank you, everyone.